Hi everyone, it's Kristie here from KP Creatives with another video for Two Scrapbook Friends. Today we are going to be having some fun with a snowflake stencil, and we're going to be ink blending on dark cardstock with Distress Oxides. So I've got the list of supplies here. I'll pop this up again at the end of the video so you can take a screenshot if you would like. Let's go through some of the supplies that we will be using for today's project. I've got this great stamp and die set from Waffle Flower Cards. This is the wonderful Christmas stamp and coordinating die set. I love stamp and die sets like this because they cut out the sentiment and they can really pack a punch on your card. So I think this set that came out this year from Waffle Flower is excellent. So again, this is Wonderful Christmas from Waffle Flower. I have gone ahead and stamped and die cut the Happy Holidays sentiment from this set. I've stamped it on the Tim Holtz Heavy Stock mixed media paper and stamped it in Distress Oxide chipped sapphire ink. So that's what we'll be using for our sentiment, and I've already got some foam tape on the back, so we'll pop it up to get a little bit of dimension on our card. I've got liquid glue, some blender brushes. We're going to be using a few Distress Oxides. So again, I used the chipped sapphire for my stamping on my sentiment. We're going to be ink blending with salvaged patina and weathered wood. So just gray and then the like tealy salvaged patina. And we are going to be ink blending on navy cardstock. So I love ink blending on Gina K's cardstock for ink blending on colored cardstock. It's really smooth and it's got a nice heavy weight to it. So if you are looking to try this out, I highly recommend using some of the Gina K cardstock to try it out. Any of the dark colors would work if you wanted to try in the navy. Edible Eggplant is a great dark purple. That would work really well too for the technique we're going to use today. And the stencil that I've got here is the Graceful Snowflake from Gina K. Any type of big snowflake image will work. I know there's some available from Tailored Expressions. I think a lot of the different brands have a large statement snowflake stencil. So any one like that will work. I've then got a piece of the matte silver cardstock from Concord and Ninth, and I've cut that down. And then for our card base, I'm using the Tim Holtz Heavy Stock mixed media. I normally don't use this for card bases, but it really is a nice heavy stock paper. And because I used the this paper for the sentiment, I thought I would just match it. So great heavyweight cardstock that will hold up on your project. So this is a standard A2 size card. So we've got 4 1/4 inches across, 5 1/2 tall. I've cut the piece of silver cardstock to 4 inches across and 5 1/4 tall. So we're going to get that nice margin. And then the navy piece, we are going to get a margin as well. So I've cut that to 3 3/4 across and 5 inches tall. So we're just going in 1/4 inch each of those measurements so we get some nice margins on our final card. So I'm going to set these two pieces off to the side and let's get started with the ink blending. So I'm going to be using Distress Oxides for this blending. And the reason I'm using the oxides is because oxides are a blend of dye and pigment ink. So if I was going to ink blend on this navy cardstock with dye inks, you wouldn't see anything because the dye inks don't work with the paper that way. They have different properties. Whereas the pigment inks, and specifically the oxides that are the fusion, they sit on the paper differently. So you are going to be able to see that it doesn't look exactly the same as it does on lighter colored cardstock, but you can see the different colors of ink. And that means you can do all kinds of inking techniques on these darker cardstocks with the oxides that you have. So I've been playing around with this for a little while as I'm making some holiday cards this year. And I have found that it works best if you take one of the lighter color oxides and go over your entire pattern first. So I did it a couple times where I went in with a lighter color in the middle and then a darker color to the outside, and it didn't really show up as well on the paper. So if you want to try this, I recommend starting all over your stencil with a lighter color, and it's going to make the other colors that you blend with stand out a little bit more. And you'll see what I mean as we move on. So I'm going to peel this back so you can see that weathered wood on the navy cardstock. So I can see I want to get a little bit more ink in a couple of the areas. So I'm going to flip that back, and I'm just going to go in with a little heavier hand and get some of that weathered wood in the spots that were looking a little light. Let's take a look at that. And just a couple more areas here. You could spray this down with pixie spray. I didn't find that I needed to with this stencil. Even though it's pretty delicate, I found it held up pretty well, so I didn't worry about that. So there we go. We've got our first layer down of weathered wood. Now, if you're not used to working with Distress Oxides, one thing you should know is that they stay wet quite a bit longer than dye inks. So if you wanted to, you could actually put clear embossing powder over top of this. Or if you had some of the Distress glaze products from Tim Holtz, you could put that on top of this to give it some extra shine on your project. I'm not going to do that today, but those are certainly some great options to kick this card up a notch if you wanted to. I'm going to now go in with salvaged patina, and I'm going to go right over top of the weathered wood. But first, I'm just going to bring in a microfiber cloth, and I'm not really cleaning the stencil totally. I'm just kind of wiping off any excess ink that's been pooling on top of the stencil. So I'm just kind of dabbing, not really wiping that hard, because I don't want to wreck any of the dainty parts of the stencil. So just dabbing it off so that I'm not contaminating my next blender brush. So now I'm going in with salvaged patina, and I'm not going to go over the whole stencil with this color. I want to concentrate in the middle and just kind of fan it out a little bit. And I'm going to go in a few times here because, again, we're putting this on darker cardstock. So it's going to dry back a little bit, and I want to make sure that we're seeing this differentiation between the weathered wood and the salvaged patina in the snowflake pattern. So I'm going to go in a couple times, just working in a circular motion with my blender brush. And let's take a look at what we've got here. So I think that looks great. You can see the differentiation between the two colors. And I had adhered this piece of navy cardstock with some pixie tape. So I'm just going to peel that back of my stencil and just set the stencil over to the side so I can clean that after. So I think that looks great. I did offset this a little bit from the side so I didn't stencil right in the middle of my cardstock, which I kind of liked just to make it a little bit different. Sometimes I find when I'm making card designs, especially with stencils, I'm always doing it in the center over and over again. So I wanted this to be a little bit different. So just offsetting it a little bit over to the one side just adds a little bit of interest to this card. Okay, so now I'm going to bring in our card base and our silver cardstock. First thing we're going to do is get some liquid glue on the back of the navy cardstock. I'm just using the Lawn Fawn liquid glue loaded up into one of the precision tip bottles, which I love to use, makes gluing really easy. I'm going to put this down on that silver cardstock. The metallic cardstocks that Concord and Ninth came out with this year, I just love them. There's a gold, a rose gold, and silver. And they are awesome, especially for holiday cards. Like, just that little border makes a big difference. I've also been cutting them really thin and just adhering them right to my card panels and making just a little bit of a strip on the edges, which has been fun to do too. So I hope you can see, because in real life, this just looks so cool with the differentiation between the salvaged patina to the weathered wood. And then that silver really just kicks it up a notch. Okay, so now we're going to put some liquid glue on the back of the silver. Get ready to adhere this right to our card panel. So again, the card base that I'm using is the Tim Holtz Heavy Stock Mixed Media. So nice off-white, heavy-duty paper. Die cut's great, ink blends great. It also holds up to sprays and any gels really well. So if you're trying out mixed media and you're looking for different cardstocks, it's a great one. So then I'm going to, again, offset this Happy Holidays just so that it's kind of in the center of the snowflake part, but off to the side of the card. So I've already got some foam tape on the back, so I'm just going to take off the release paper. And I'm probably going to put a little bit of liquid glue on the back just so I can have some wiggle room and move this sentiment around if I need to, because I don't want to put it down right away and need to straighten it. And that'll be really difficult to do if I just have the adhesive from the foam tape. So just to give yourself a little bit of wiggle room, I highly recommend popping a little bit of liquid glue on top there. So I'm going to have the H of the Holidays come almost right to the edge. And I think that looks good. Okay, so there you go. Quick, simple, and easy. Really fun to try ink blending on this darker color cardstock. I do this on black quite often, but I really like it on navy. So if you've got some navy cardstock or you want to try out the Gina K cardstock, it blends so well with these oxide inks. So go ahead and grab one of your statement snowflake stencils, some darker cardstock, your blender brushes, and have some fun with your oxides and just bring something a little bit different to some holiday cards for this season. So here again are the supplies that we used in today's card project. Thank you for watching. I hope you are having a great holiday season and starting to get crafty. If you have a moment, please subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell. You'll be notified when we post new videos here at Two Scrapbook Friends. So thanks again for joining us, and we will see you next time.